My family comes from Kishinev, Moldavia. They were there until my parents were about 20 years old. And they left. My mother talks about it with real fondness. But there was a lot of anti-Semitism there. They left because of the anti-Semitism. There was the big Kishinev
pogrom.
Yes. And 49 people were killed in that. Over 600 were raped and tortured. A baby was put in an oven to keep him safe, and he suffocated. And the shtetl was demolished. So it was not a happy time.
That was 1903.
That was 1903.
And how did it affect your own family and uncle?
Well, the baby was killed. The people were hurt. It was no longer a safe place to be. Although my father was also from there, they never met each other while they were there. They met each other waiting on a line for standing room tickets at the Metropolitan Opera House, where other Kishinev people went. It's like a bar. I'm going to meet somebody. And they arrived separately, and they left in pieces. My father, myself, and my mother's older sister, Rivka, left one way. There's one tab that's just for the three of them, and my father left in another way, and he stopped off in Paris to go to the Sorbonne to study math. He did that for a year, then he left and continued on to America. It makes me so sad to think that he didn't finish, because he would have had an easier life. He came to America, to the streets lined with gold, and unfortunately, he didn't find those streets. And he went into the factory to work. He was a furrier, and the furriers' union was a leftist union, but the people were afraid to listen to them because they didn't want to lose their job. One can only understand that. But he continued with that. My mother was a milliner, also in the factories, and they made a life that way, and it all went into the children. So the children got the benefit of all of this.
Now, did your parents ever talk about their parents or their grandparents? Do you have a sense of the earlier generation?
They talked about, not too much, and Norman's family, my husband's family, not at all. But my family talked, but they talked more when they came here.
What were the family names in your family? Do you remember?
Shaneberg, my father's name. Mother, I have here someplace.
And do you have a sense, I mean, you talked about the anti-Semitism, the pogrom. Do you have a sense of what life was like for them growing up?
Well, my mother talked about it in really good terms. every once in a while a pogrom would come through. Never as violent as what happened in 1903. So they didn't talk that much about their family. They talked about it, my family, but my husband's family, not at all. And you always want to go back and see if you can find out things that you didn't think to ask for.
Did you know, did any of your grandparents come over?
My one grandparent was a step-grandparent. She said she was going to the States to see her children. And she went, and she said, I'm not coming back. So Father was in a bind. What is he going to do? He's going off to Philadelphia. And he took all the children, and there were a lot of children, and he took all of his stuff. He couldn't take anything out, his money, his property, and they left the country. So they didn't leave because they themselves were in the pogrom. They left for other reasons. My father left, and he went to the Sorbonne. I'm trying to think who else. My father also left because they were pulling people off the streets to serve in the army. And he didn't want to go into the army because at that point you went into the army, you never saw anybody again. And so he left because of that. Landed in Harlem. Came to the United States in 1920. And he went right away into the factory, which was troublesome for me when I found out.
And where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, in 1936. February 17, 1936. It's going to be my birthday, and it's a formidable number for me.
Well, bis 120, as they say in Yiddish. May you live to 120. And where did you grow up? What neighborhood?
I grew up in Brownsville. My husband grew up in Williamsburg. I used to say I married down. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful life for a child. The kids, we used to play in the street without worry of being hit by a car because there were no cars. We used to play hopscotch, baseball, handball, skelly with a bottle cap. Occasionally a big truck would come by and with a Ferris wheel or a carousel. My father would come striding down the block to pick me up, throw me over his shoulder, and take me for a ride home. He used to take me to Radio City Music Hall. They were wonderful parents, and they made life wonderful for me. They heard the tinkle of the Good Humor Man, and I used to run to my father and say, "Throw down a nickel so I can eat some ice cream." So it was a wonderful, wonderful life.
And what was the home like? Where did you live?
We lived in an apartment building. we lived on the 6th floor. It was the only elevator building because after 5 floors, you have to have an elevator. So it was an elevator building. And for people, my husband and I, who traveled all the time, the only move I made in those 20 years was from the 5th floor to the 6th floor. That was the level of moving. I was also a latchkey child. You know a latchkey?
Yeah. Can you explain, though, for the younger people what that is?
A latchkey, my mother and father were both working, so when I came home from school, I had to go into the house, and one of the neighbors held the key. I would knock on the door, she'd give me the key, and I was able to get into the house. So we made a good life, and we didn't have to worry about soccer costumes or special things. It was everyday things that we didn't worry that we had.
And who was in the actual apartment when you were growing up? Who were the people?
I was there, my brother, and my parents, the 4 of us.
And were younger or older?
I have had a brother who was 6.5 years older than I, and we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. I shared a room with my brother, who used to get up and jump in the room to make me laugh. My mother gave him instructions to make me drink milk when he came home, and he used to make me drink milk until I got sick. But I had very little to do with him because he was so much older than I. So it was 4 of us in the room, and there was a long corridor, and it was dark when I came in, and I was scared, and I'd run down the corridor.
And, you know, Bronzeville in those days, there were a lot of Jewish businesses and Jewish life. What do you remember, like Pitkin Avenue?
Pitkin Avenue. I heard the word Pitkin Avenue about a month ago. Somebody mentioned it. I said, Pitkin Avenue? I can't believe I haven't heard that name said in a long time. We used to walk along Pitkin Avenue. There were the roasted chestnuts, the popcorn, the sweet corn from stands out, and there was a movie house, the Hopkinson movie house, and there was the movie, the Dierbock. Is rein in das Mädel Dierbock. What a thing to take a child to. So Pitkin Avenue was wonderful, and there was a big window, very tall window, with pictures. It was a photography store, and my picture was there in a ballet costume, which was another reason to go to Pitkin Avenue to see me. Pitkin Avenue was wonderful. My father used to take me there to go walking, and he'd stick his head in the door to have a glass of beer. I couldn't go in.
Do you remember any particular smells or food places?
Well, the chestnuts gave off the ordinary smells of life. You know.
And what was Jewish about your growing up?
Well, we were not religious Jews. We were, what do you call
Secular?
Jews who, secular Jews. We were secular Jews. we knew it was an important holiday, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah. We knew it was important, but we didn't sit in shul. My father would go to shul to say Yiska. Otherwise, we'd walk on the street in a quiet area. Sometimes I would have a pishka to collect money for Israel. After Yom Kippur, my mother's friend Sonia would bring down a honey cake, and we would have that. My husband followed a different way. He would sit in shul the whole day. They were more religious. And at the end, to break the fast, my father-in-law would tell Norman to run home and get a bottle of whiskey, bring the whiskey back, and stop in the storefront, and each would have a shot or two of whiskey to end the holiday. The rabbi, seeing that people were getting restless already, said, okay, I'm going to blow the shofar, but I want you to know you still can't eat for another hour.
And how do you do anything special on Friday night or Shabbos when you were growing up?
Nothing. We did not celebrate that. We didn't go to I never went into the shul. The strange thing is, a lot of strange things, that I was a secular Jew. My family was secular Jews. They followed certain things that they decided was important, but they knew they were Jewish. There was no question about it. There was nobody in my building who wasn't Jewish. The only one who wasn't Jewish was the superintendent. And he used to let the kids come into his house to see the Christmas tree. And he would also put a Christmas tree in the lobby, and no one seemed to mind. It was fine.
And how much Yiddish did you hear growing up?
You know, how much Yiddish did I hear? I went to an after-school Yiddish program from the, oh God, well, I'll get back to that. And the teacher, Chava Gerchberg, said to my mother, she writes well, she does all kinds of things well, she knows the social history of Israel. She can't speak. Why don't you speak Yiddish in the house so she'll learn? Oh no, we want her to be an American. We don't want her with Yiddish. We want an American child. And they won out. That was the time when that was true. Nowadays, Yiddish is all over the place. We've integrated words into the language.
And were there particular times when your parents would switch into Yiddish, or you'd hear older folks?
When they didn't want me to know what they were saying, so they switched into Yiddish at that point. Then, unfortunately, I began to understand Yiddish, and so they switched into Russian. I never went that far.
And the Yiddish school, was it the Sholem Aleichem or Workers' Arbeiterinnen?
It was a Sholem Aleichem school, and there were only 6 children in the class. I see Chava Gerchberg walking along Sutter Avenue to come to teach, and the kids gave him a very hard time because that's what kids do. But otherwise, we did not speak Yiddish. Norman, my husband's family, spoke Yiddish, but Norman spoke Yiddish much worse than my Yiddish. I sometimes teach friends Yiddish, Jewish people who don't know anything. So I say, I'm giving you classes now, so you should know. So I do it once in a while, but it's a joke. It's fun.
And do you remember whether you liked Yiddish school or not?
Well, the fact is that I asked to go. It was an after-school program. My brother had gone, and my parents didn't particularly care one way or another. But I asked them to go, and I went to the Yiddish school for a number of years, and then it was time to go to middle school. And I went for 1 year, and I said I can't do it because I was going to school 6 days a week. It was too much. And so I stopped. We went to the school, I think it was in Washington Irving High School, yes? But that was the extent of it. But did I speak Yiddish any place? No. I knew it was there. I could understand some of it, but I wanted to be an American.
And do you remember, you mentioned the Dybbuk. Did you remember any other Yiddish culture around, radio or movies, theater?
The Dybbuk I mentioned because it's so scary. No.
Did you get a paper in the house, a Yiddish paper?
We didn't. Norman's father got the Forvitz. I got all the New York Times and all the English paper. The Post, my father had a pile next to him of newspapers. My father was very anxious to learn English. And he would sit with books up to here, consulting them all the time. My mother also speak English. She went to a school. The teacher was Mr. Goldman. From where I pulled that, I don't know. Mr. Goldman had a class in Washington Irving High School where he taught English. It's funny, when I went to school on the Sunday, I had him as a teacher. He would tell me about my mother. It was a very closed, wonderful community. It was a wonderful time.
And as you think back on that time, are there other things you think maybe worth mentioning? Any stories or things that would give people a sense of what Brownsville was like in that time?
Well, it was an all-Jewish neighborhood. There was nobody else there. I lived in two worlds. The world that was home with my parents, very closed. We really didn't go into the city. It was a special neighborhood. And then I got married, and we left the next day for California, for Berkeley, California. And that was another world because it wasn't closed, because I heard anti-Semitic remarks there. I remember we were standing on a line, Norman and I, and some woman in back of me said something that was anti-Semitic, and my husband, the hothead, turned around and said, "What did you say?" and moved back. So it was another world. I had two worlds. I never went back to the first one. It was a good one, but I was moving on in life. I went there to California, to Berkeley. Norman started work on his doctorate, and I started teaching. I taught for 2 years in an all-black school, which was very challenging. And then I went back to Berkeley to get my master's. We then moved to McGill and froze in Canada. And then we came here, and we've been here since 1965. And I'm still here, and I'm still in my home, where I'll always be until they carry me out. My marriage with Norman was extraordinary. People come up and tell me, he's gone now 10 years. People come up and tell me, I still see you walking in the street holding hands. So I was very lucky. Not lucky enough because I wish he hadn't died, but very, very lucky. And Berkeley was a good place to start our life because we were 3,000 miles away from family. I advise people all the time to move 3,000 miles from family. It makes for a happier marriage.
And what did it force you to do or figure out on your own?
It didn't force me to do anything. It just made me realize there's another world out there that I was not a part of and that I was becoming a part of. But we were very busy setting up a new life for ourselves that we didn't have time to be upset. We had wonderful professors, we had wonderful teachers, and I had my first son there. So it was good.
And when you and Norman were creating your own family, what kind of decisions did you make about Jewishness?
No decisions. We were Jews. That's all we needed to know. We had some Jewish friends, but the world was open. There were a lot of Jewish people, a lot of non-Jewish people, and we socialized together. I think it was more true in Canada, where there were groups of Jewish people in Canada. Before we went to Canada, I read a book about it. It said, the French hate the Jews. No, the French hate the English hate the French, and everybody hates the Jews. I said, where are you taking me? It was an old book.
Well, I wanted to ask a little bit about your parents and your father, actually, that you mentioned earlier that he was involved in, he was a furrier and he worked in a union shop. Mm-hmm. And how did that play out for him? I understand it sort of had some repercussions down the line.
Well, it played out for him because he lost his job because of that. He was a union man, and the workers didn't follow the union rules because they were afraid of losing jobs. And my father spoke out too much, and he lost his job. When he lost his job, it was difficult to find something else. and he was embarrassed not to be working. He used to go spend time in the movies until he got a job with the post office. And it's interesting that the post office, what was he sending? Sending letters, how are you? The post office sent an FBI person to check him out. And my father said, if I signed that, I don't remember. So he was there. Both my mother and father were big union people, but my father suffered for it more than my mother.
Did you ever visit their workplace? Did you ever see the factories?
I went to visit my mother's workplace, and the girls, the ones who were making the hats, they were like second mothers. And they were so happy to see me when I would come up and visit with them. Their shop was on 5th Avenue and 39th Street. And I would go there and do some sewing. And they wanted to show me how to make something better. And my mother said, don't show her. I didn't come for the factory that she should be a milliner. I don't want her to do this. So the girls had to stop telling them that. My father's place, no, I never went into his place. His hands were so strong, my father, because of working with the pelts of the, as he brushed them down, his hands would get very, very strong, and he could crack a walnut with his bare hands. So he was a show.
Well, speaking of walnuts and food, was there Jewish food in the home growing up?
A Jewish
food?
We never had bacon in the house. My father did most of the cooking because my mother came home late. He'd make a brisket. He'd go down Sunday morning, leave me stirring the watina, and he would buy all the wonderful appetizers, the lox, the whitefish, the bagels, all the wonderful food, and that would be for the day. My mother wasn't much of a cook. She had other things going for her. But yes, Sunday was a special day.
And did your parents ever talk to you about politics?
Politics was in the air. I see my father sitting in a rocking chair next to the radio, talking politics, talking what was going on with the McCarthy hearings. That was a scary time. So yes, politics was in the air, as were Mr. FBI.
And how tuned in were you to what was going on in Europe, and news of the war and post-war? How much was that part of your consciousness?
The most that I remember was when Roosevelt died, people were crying in the streets. But that was far away, and it didn't affect our lives at all.
And one thing maybe a little connected to politics was Kinderland.
Ah, Kinderland.
So can you just explain first what Kinderland?
Kinderland was a camp with a lot of Yiddish being spoken. There was a maintenance man there who we called Pajamas. We would sing songs all the time. Oi Kinderland, du Zauberland. And we would see the same people year after year coming to the bunk. And Doris would cry the first night, the whole night. And after that, she was fine. We had Paul Robeson come to the camp, and we wore our white shirts and ties. It was also the time of the polio epidemic, and so they only allowed parents to come once during the summertime. We used to go into the lake and hold hands, partners, stop every few minutes to make sure nobody had drowned. There was across the way the other camp,
Kinderwelt.
Kinderring. Yeah. And we'd have contests with them, who would win most. Kinderland was what brought me down here. The newspaper had an article about an exhibit here on Kinderland. I shrieked. We have to go down. I don't drive, so my friend took me down. It wasn't much of an exhibit, but it was the idea of it. The three camps, Boybrook, Kinderland, and one other.
Kindering.
And the other one.
Yeah, or Hemsha, yeah.
What else can I say about Kinderland?
What was a typical day as a camper?
Typical day, Rice Krispies. Get up in the morning, Rice Krispies. We'd meet in a bunk. We'd change into bathing suits, go for a swim, stay in the water. A lot of running around, and we were just let loose. But the fact is that we did do a lot of Yiddish there. There was a class that we set up. Nobody seemed to mind that. You know, today kids would say, "What are we doing?" But they seem to be okay with it. We seem to be okay with it.
If I had, if someone had asked you when you were 12, what do you think of Yiddish? Do you have an idea what you might have responded?
What's not to think of Yiddish? The fact is that when we got back to the city, I asked to go to a Yiddish school. Why I did that, I haven't got the vaguest idea. A kid calling to go to a school after school, but I did. I asked to go to school.
Do you remember any songs from that time?
Oi Kinderland, du Zauberland, und der Himmel freien, wir kommen du zu Opruhen starken Bernai, and my kinder and the love of Kindergarten. Now you know why my son never asked me to sing to him at bedtime.
Was Yiddish music around? And
Yiddish music was certainly in Camp Kinderland. Besides this song, there was a lot of Yiddish there, and happily Yiddish there.
Do you remember anything else about the Paul Robeson visit?
I don't remember anything about Paul Robeson. I have the pictures here of Paul Robeson. One of your colleagues wanted to take it. I said, "Oh, you can have it. You can photograph, but when I'm dead, I'll leave it to you in my will. But it must have been a very special day. It's very interesting, the things that are coming out now in the newspaper. There was an article about Paul Robeson recently in the New York Times. Did you see it? They were talking, the article was talking about the fact that Robeson was in Russia. For a while he had to stay in Russia. And that he was told that he's not to sing any Yiddish songs. Why? I don't know. But here it is, telling him not to sing. The anti-Semitism coming out again? I don't know. So that was interesting, and there was also another article in the Times a few weeks ago about Yiddish revivifying itself. And it is. Look at this center. The Gingerman put it in here. Yeah, it's revivifying itself. It's becoming part of the everyday speech.
When you look back on your life, how do you think having that upbringing has influenced who you are now, who you became as an adult?
The growing up, as I said, was a wonderful life. My parents in the factory, and there was a secret, a silent bond that we had, that my parents were going to do everything in the world that they could for us. But we were to be a success in life. That would be their payback for it. And my father was totally involved in my life. When I practiced piano, he was sitting by my side. When I practiced ballet, he would get down on the floor and move my feet in the right way. He was completely involved in me. What I wanted to say, hold your thing. Well, I can't find it. Yeah. I remember my father asking the teacher, do you think we should give her elocution lessons? Actually, he should have. And the teacher said, leave the child alone. She's already taking dancing lessons. She's already taking piano lessons. Leave her alone for a while. The report card was a very, very important thing. When the report card time came, I was always very nervous. And my father would come home, wash his hands, sit down in his rocking chair, get himself ready to see the report card. And if it was less than A-, he would ask, what happened here? Why is it this way? It was worse for my brother than for me. Years later, I found some of the report cards, and I'm wondering what in heaven's name was he upset about? Because the report cards were very good, but they had to be the best. So it was a trying time there. Some people say we put too much pressure on them. We then started a school and synagogue.
Yeah, so what did that idea come from for you?
Where did the idea, we were a young community, very naive, very chutzpahdik, and our children, we grew up in an atmosphere where we knew we were Jews and we knew what it meant to be a Jew. Here, they didn't know anything. And even though we wouldn't have had any problem if we were alone, we had a problem because we had children. So there was a synagogue in Northampton. There is a synagogue in Northampton. But Northampton is not our community. Amherst is our community. And Northampton was a business community. We were an academic community. So we said, with all the chutzpah of young people, we're going to make it. We're going to do it. You can't do it. We're going to do it. And we did it. We did volunteer work to do everything. We had no rabbi, we had no books, we had no teachers, we had no nothing. And we started with 30 families. We now have over 300. And we have a rabbi, and we have books, and we have all the things that are necessary. Norman and I were one of the few founders of the synagogue school. I was all over the place, teacher, curriculum developer, et cetera, et cetera. They said we couldn't do it. We did it. It was a lot of volunteer work. And thanks to my husband's persistence, we now have a cemetery as well. Unfortunately, it's filling up too quickly, but it's there. So I'm very proud of us. We did a wonderful thing, and it has grown, and it's getting better.
So how did you, as secular Jews, decide what kind of community you wanted to create?
That was the question. We did not want to say this is the Reconstructionists, this is the Orthodox. There weren't that many people. So we had to decide that it would be a synagogue for everyone. Everyone was welcome, and they could adjust it themselves to what they wanted. And that was okay with almost everybody. So we didn't make a differentiation. We couldn't. I mean, it would be like having one person. I don't know anybody who was Orthodox, maybe one person. But it had to be where we welcomed everybody. Everybody felt good. And the entire community, the Amherst community, supported us. We had our first Rosh Hashanah service in college, Amherst College, in the chapel. They rented, and it was beautiful. Because we didn't have family here, we became each other's family. We would sit and schmooze after the service. We'd have cake, kiddush after the service, and we had one of the members Chaim Gunner. Do you know Chaim? Chaim Gunner was the cantor. Chaim Gunner helped me get a curriculum together for the school with Rabbi Lander, gave me topics. We did remarkable things. It was remarkable. And then we used to meet in various places, in the Catholic Church and the Lutheran Church, and everybody was very kind. They gave us the flag from the veterans was there. It was a real welcome by the community. They wanted to know where the Jews were. We were right there.
And I'm curious, you've been here for a while.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you started hearing about this thing that became the building we're in now, this Yiddish project that was happening, or Aaron Lansky?
I remember the Yingerman coming to us to ask for a donation. I think separate people gave. But as he said, most people, when he went to the big organization, said, Yiddish. If you were asking me for something for Hebrew studies, yes. But Yiddish is dying. I.B. Singer had been here at the campus center many years ago, and he was asked that question. Why are you doing Yiddish? Why are you writing in Yiddish? It's a dying language. And I.B. Singer said, there's a big difference between dying and dead. That's when people began to see that, and it was brought into our lives, our everything. Now there are classes in Yiddish in various schools, people who aren't Yiddish. Look at you.
Yeah. How much, if at all, is Yiddish a part of your life now?
Not at all. I use it to kid around with my friends when they're leaving the house. Geh gesundheit. I do that with people who aren't Jewish. I have a very sweet guy. I say, Geh gesundheit. He repeats, and then he says, what did I say? So it's a fun thing. But other than that, people who have no sense of humor, I can't tell them anything.
And from your perspective, where is Yiddish? What's its status today?
I think Yiddish is doing just what it's doing now. It's integrating itself into people's lives. The language is becoming richer because of it. The words that come in become part of the lexicon. Schmutz, ay vey. These are Yiddish words, but they're becoming part of the lexicon.
Do you want to tell anything else about Norman? About maybe how you met?
If I cry, you'll stop me. I met Norman on a blind date. I had a friend coming in from Arizona, and I said to the guy who asked me out that I couldn't go out if I didn't find a date for her. So I didn't go. Then all of a sudden somebody called her and she made plans to go out. My mother nearly went through the roof. I said, it doesn't bother me, Mom. So I met Norman on New Year's Eve, 55, 56. He was at Columbia going for a degree in English literature. He'd just come out of the Army. He took me to this party, and there was a drink, vodka and orange juice. I never drank, but I was very thirsty, and I had something to drink, and I slipped down the stairs. The mother of the boy who was there, when she heard that Norman was engaged, said, "Is that drunk girl?" So I met him New Year's Eve, and we were engaged 3 months later, April 1st. I said, if it doesn't work out, I can always say it was a joke. And then we married at the end of August, and went the very next day to California, 3,000 miles worth of good. Norman was my heartthrob. I'm still crying after all these years. He was wonderful, and we had a wonderful marriage. And I don't know how I live without him. It's one of the reasons I will never move from my home, because he's every place. I see him, yeah, that's where we bought that, remember? And I'm angry with him, and I yell at him, and it's a good thing nobody hears me, because they take me off. People, we didn't need anybody, and therefore when he died, I was truly alone. People used to say, we don't come up and talk to you because you're so engaged with each other that we feel we're going to be breaking up something. People see us walking with my arm linked into his. I was a very fortunate woman. I still am a fortunate woman, because I had all of those years with him, 59 years. And he took me to wonderful places. What else can I say about Norman? He was wonderful.
Beautiful. Well, Ashenim Dank.
From my heart to yours.
Thank you.
This was wonderful for me.